Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. It is Tuesday, the 7th of November. My voice is going already. We've got loads of news to talk about today. We're talking Jadon Sancho. There's more updates, more going on. Is it true? Is it not? We'll get into all of that. Also, Wayne Rooney, United's record goal scorer. We all know Wayne Rooney is, don't need to preface that. Come out telling us however it just gets bladdered all the time before games. We'll be talking about that. Also, we need to talk about this game last night. One of the most ridiculous games of football I've ever seen in my life. And specifically, we'll be talking about the comments afterwards. It's been the week of VAR, of managers going crazy, people losing their minds. Ange Postecoglou's gone a slightly different way. And we want to look at how this is not just obviously affecting the game yesterday, but how this is going to affect things going forward. Because there's been a bit of a tide going one way. And maybe we're going to see it sort of come back the other way after those comments last night. How will it affect United? We'll get into all of that as we go along. Rocco Blue says, morning, Joe. Good morning. Morning, everyone. Morning, Stephanie. Morning, Chua. Good morning from Singapore. Wow. Very, internet, eh? What a place. Let's start with Jadon Sancho then. So we need to go through this and then we're going to look at, is it true? And even if it is true, does it matter? So Jadon Sancho kicked out of Man United WhatsApp group, in quotes there, amid toxic spat with Erik ten Hag. Toxic spat sounds like some sort of Pokemon move, doesn't it? Jadon Sancho used toxic spat. Sancho fell out with ten Hag after the Manchester United boss told the press he was unhappy with the 23-year-old's application in training sessions. We know this. Then Sancho came out and said, "You're talking a load of shit. I've been a scapegoat for a long time." Actually, where does the term scapegoat come from? Because we all want to know stuff like that. Scapegoat etymology. Because where are goats? What do we reckon? Let's have a look. Scapegoat etymology. From the archaic escaped goat. It's just a goat that's escaped, essentially. And that's being used to blame other people. I don't quite get that. Basically, Sancho thinks he's an escaped goat and that Ten Hag is having a dig at him. So the next step now was then that he's training with the reserves. He's not even allowed in the main building at Carrington. He has to get changed behind a blanket because he's literally training with like teenagers. So he has to eat by himself. He's not allowed to look at Ten Hag. If he even uses the tap water in Carrington, he gets told off. It was a little bit silly. He's getting his meals brought to him from the main canteen over to where he is. There's a lot of things going on where you just think this whole situation is ludicrous, and it's such a shame that a signing with as much potential and as much hype as this is and was has ended or looks to be ending this way. Now, the latest update on this is Jadon Sancho has allegedly been kicked out of the Man United WhatsApp group after his clash with Erik ten Hag. Sancho, scroll down a little bit. Let's get into the actual meat of this. There you go. As we see 3 consecutive pictures of succulent roast beef. So it's coming in from the Sun, which again, that tells you that's your first warning sign here. Is now reporting that Ten Hag is taking things one step further by booting the forward out of United's WhatsApp group, which he and his staff used to update the first team. Sancho is said to be unhappy with the way he's being treated, but is refusing to apologise to Ten Hag, despite having deleted the controversial social media post. United sources, meanwhile, have confirmed the situation between Sancho and Ten Hag has reached an impasse, with no way back for the player until he decides to apologise to his boss. It gets to the point, though, doesn't it, where even if he does apologise, it's now been, 7 weeks since the Arsenal game. Like, just an apology at this point, even that I don't think would be enough to fully satisfy Ten Hag and to make this anything other than, how quickly can we get him out of the club. Like, if you'd have apologised straight away, I can see it, and maybe there's a way back. But you're dealing now clearly with someone who, for whatever reason, isn't willing to apologise. And whether that's because Jadon Sancho is correct and Ten Hag has unfairly treated him, or whether that's because Jadon Sancho is being slightly petulant and, is putting his kind of pride before the truth. Regardless of which one it is, these aren't people who can work together. Ten Hag and Sancho can't work together. Either Ten Hag is a liar and he's disrespected Sancho, in which case, why would they work together? Or Sancho is acting a bit like a spoilt kid and Ten Hag, it doesn't want to work with him. So there's 7 weeks of this problem now. It's not like Sancho went, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I messed up." Or Ten Hag went, "Actually, I've probably been a bit too harsh on you there." This isn't getting any better. And this WhatsApp thing, whether it's true or not, is just another sign of, the decay. But also, him leaving a WhatsApp group for the first team, he's not a first team player anymore. So it kind of makes sense that he wouldn't be in there. I'm not in there. I bet the 15-year-olds and the 16-year-olds at United who, aren't in the first team, they're not in that group either. Jadon Sancho isn't in the first team, so it would make sense that he's not in the first team WhatsApp group. I think it's obviously maybe slightly petty and slightly silly, and it may not even be true. But even if it is true, it's not that big a deal because, of course, he's not. He's not allowed to train. He's not allowed in the room. He's not allowed in the building at Carrington where the first team go. He's not even allowed in the building. So why would he be allowed in the WhatsApp group? Another thing to remember is he can always get put back in the WhatsApp group. It's not like a permanent ban, is it? If he gets back in the first team, if he apologises, you just add the number back in. So I don't think this is some, it's not like he's like, he's crushed and cubed Jadon Sancho, some sort of car plant. Do you know what I mean? This can be undone. You just put someone back in a WhatsApp group. He's not, destroyed anything. But it does seem as though things have just completely broken down. I don't see a way where this comes back. Like I said, it's gone on for too long now. If this had been a week or two and, we're still mad and I can't, but how long do you actually stay mad after an argument for? I don't know about anyone else. If I have an argument with anyone, within about 24 hours, I'm going, I shouldn't have done that. I feel bad now. How can I make this right? How can I fix this? The 24-hour mark has passed 7 weeks ago. Like, if you're still this mad that you will not apologise and you will not take a backward step, you're never going to, are you? And in the meantime, you might be costing your team games by not being available. So I can't see a way where this is salvaged now. Whispering Eye says that bloody Jadon Sanchez. I know it's tough, isn't it? David Pontin says, "Nice clobber, Joe. Is it a tribute to Stormzy at Glasgow?" It is. Yeah, this is my Stormzy moment, as I like to think of it. Although wasn't he shirtless with his sleeve underneath? Yeah, I'm not going to go that far. Tim Crampton says, "Just think how much easier it'll be for Ten Hag once he gets rid of these toxic players. We all knew it would take time. Trust in Eric." It just seems as though I think. It doesn't necessarily have to be Jadon Sancho is toxic, and maybe that is the case. But from what we know, it seems to me that these two people's personalities just don't line up, and I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think if Sancho had a manager where they were a bit more arm around the shoulder, a little bit more understanding, a bit more friendly, because I don't think Ten Hag is mean, but he's not a particularly smiley, happy, friendly kind of guy, is he? He's not a silly, jokey, matey bloke. He seems quite serious, quite studious, quite sort of well-researched and well-read. He doesn't seem like a laugh or a mate. Maybe Sancho needs that. And there's loads of players who have great times with certain managers, bad times with others. Look at Zlatan Ibrahimovic, one of the greatest strikers in the history of football, absolutely hates Pep Guardiola, one of the greatest managers in the history of football. They didn't work together. It was a personality clash. Whereas, he loves other managers. He loves Jose and he loves other people, doesn't he? Zlatan, and he's won league titles pretty much everywhere he's been. So there's no necessarily harm in Jadon Sancho needs someone who's going to be a bit more knocking on the hotel door, getting him out of bed, and a bit more arm around the shoulder and a bit more sort of comforting. That might not be a problem, but you're not going to get that in Ten Hag, and I don't see how that's going to work. Let's move on to Wayne Rooney, chatting on a podcast, saying that in his early United career, he drank until he passed out, or almost passed out, as a release. He's on the podcast of ex-rugby star and motor neuron disease campaigner Rob Burrow, and opened up about the difficulties he faced in finding a way to deal with the pressures of fame as a young man. And he's spoken a little bit about this in the past, but I think it's worth reiterating. There you go. My release was alcohol when I was in my early 20s. Early 20s as well. For a lot of players, you think, they're just coming through. Wayne Rooney was starring in Champions League winning runs in his early 20s. What was he, 22, 23 in 2008 when we won the Champions League? So this isn't like, before he got to his peak, he had a few drinking issues. This is him at his peak. I'd go home and spend a couple of days at home and not leave the house. I'd drink until I'd almost pass out. I didn't want to be around people because sometimes you feel embarrassed, sometimes you feel you've let people down, and ultimately I didn't know how else to deal with it. When you don't take the help and guidance of others, you can be in a really low place, and I was for a few years with that. Thankfully now, I'm not afraid to go and speak to people about issues. It's hard, isn't it? Especially when, depending on your background and what you're encouraged to do and what is seen as embarrassing or silly or, not the done thing. And especially when you're someone like Wayne Rooney who we'll never know the pressure and the stress and the wave of just, I mean, fame is a good thing and a bad thing, isn't it? But we'll never know what that's like. Being a 15-year-old, I know when he was known to be a potential world-class talent from the age of 13, wasn't he, Wayne Rooney? And having that pressure your whole life, then getting it, then the Euros, then the United move, like, it's just an insane amount of pressure for a child, and he was a child, to be put under. And you can see how these things happen. You can see how people struggle to deal with that pressure, and it must be difficult. And obviously the fact his natural talent and his hard work as well, I think people just put too much emphasis on natural talent. His hard work and his ability to, even in the dark times, do the right thing, turn up for training, put in great performances for Manchester United, is a testament to the quality and the mentality that he had. And I think he's probably the most underrated player in Premier League history, Wayne Rooney. I think he should be in the conversation for greatest ever Premier League player. And he's often left out of that. But interesting to see, obviously, United's top goal scorer. At the time he retired, he was England's top goal scorer as well. Just a fantastic footballer. And it can be difficult for anyone to deal with that sort of pressure and what's going on in their personal life. So, yeah, I think if anyone's sat there thinking, oh, what, my life's good, why do I feel shit? There's no sort of limiting factor to how you can feel. So, yeah, Wayne Rooney there opening up. And I think it's good that he opens up because, like I said there, people might look at that and think, actually, you know what? Even Wayne Rooney felt shit and he had the best life in the world. So, yeah, I think it's very important that he speaks out about things like that, and it's good to him do so. Let's move on to last night because, first of all, what on earth was that football match? One of the most unique, bizarre football games I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know what it is with Tottenham, but whenever they play Chelsea, they absolutely lose their head. It's like they're playing against their ex-girlfriend's new boyfriend. Like, they're so mad and just upset from the first whistle. There's just no self-control whatsoever when Tottenham play. What's that about? Why is that? Because they're not even each other's biggest rival. Like, it's meant to be Arsenal for Tottenham, and what is it, Fulham or whatever for Chelsea. And yet, we were chatting about it in the office yesterday before the game. Me, Ronaldo and Jay were saying, this is literally the non-United game I look forward to the most. Every time it's Arsenal, it's Chelsea Spurs, I go, I need to find a way to watch that. It's always great. And then yesterday was just insane. Obviously, we saw Romero get sent off, saw Udogie get sent off as well. To me, both absolutely justified. Romero could have been sent off previously, to be honest. I don't think it should have been, but sort of David Beckham might say otherwise. Was it Romero who did the David Beckham kick? Yeah, on the floor. But it was clearly a red card. It's dangerous. It's one of those that could have broke the player's leg. And then after the game, you see some Tottenham fans talking about how they were robbed, VAR's done them, they've been robbed. And it's nice to see, especially following Arteta. And I wonder if this is a slightly calculated move from Ange Postecoglou, because obviously their biggest rival, not just, sort of historically, but in the league, or one of them is Arsenal. Arteta completely exploded at the result against Newcastle. Ange Postecoglou going the other way for it. And basically saying, in my career, I've never criticised refs. They've got a really difficult job to do. And, I'm not going to sit here and tell them how bad things are. And a good point he said, and I don't know if it'll be on here, is how this constant back and forth, you see Arteta there, look, sort of running away with anger, is eroding the control and the power that referees have. And they need to have some control and power. I know people think, and probably rightly so sometimes, that they can be a little bit power mad. They can sort of want it to be all about them, all these things we hear with referees. But they do inherently have an authority in the game, which then leads to a power and a control. That is what they are there for. And anything that erodes that, that's what we were saying yesterday on the Paddock podcast. Check it out. We had a good long chat about this. All of the ways that you could think to make it slightly fairer or more transparent can also have the adverse effect of making referees have less control over a game. Which, again, what does that lead to? It leads to managers doing what Arteta did the other day, calling it a disgrace, saying that he feels sick to be part of this, all of these things. And I think it's nice to see from Postecoglou, who it almost annoys me that I'm agreeing with him because I'm sort of sick of how much everyone loves him. But it's nice to see, there you go, look, the constant erosion of referees' authority, this is what the game is going to get. They'll not have any authority, it's going to get diminished, and we're going to be in the control of someone a few miles away watching TV on a screen. The decision's the decision. You either accept it or you don't. Trust me, in 26 years, I've had plenty of bad ones, and I've had plenty that have fallen in my favour. It is what it is. And he's right. And it also, I almost think referees are going to like him more for talking like this. People are going to maybe help them out. Because we were talking yesterday about Arteta. Is it going to get more decisions for Arsenal? And maybe it will. But this is going to endear people to him as if they weren't already. Everyone fucking loves him, don't they? It does, Maiden. But I do think it's worth having this balance and having someone that comes out and says, actually, they're just trying to do their job. They, most of the time, and I'm sure some of the time, they get it wrong on purpose or they make mistakes to cover their own back. But I would say 95, 98, 99% of the time, referees are trying to make the decision they think is right. And it's hard to have much more to say about it. That's why I always say, I don't mind refs making mistakes. It's when they've got 30 replays with 4 different people watching it on a screen and they still make a mistake, that's the thing I can't abide, because the natural flow of a football match and the speed of a football match leads to mistakes. It's hard to see everything at once. But this thing of, well, we've got the technology, we've got the lines, we've got the replays, and we still get it wrong, that's when I think it's just crap. And that's why I think VAR, the mistakes we get from VAR are so much harder to swallow than the ones you get from a referee doing their best in the moment. Because what can you do? But I think it's good to see that. And I think Ten Hag almost separates himself from this a little bit. He'll mention a decision or that he thinks that something hasn't been great, but he hasn't either exploded to the Arteta and Klopp degree or done this kind of, what, refs are all right, like Ange has done. He's kind of in the middle, and I wonder if maybe that leaves us in a position where United are kind of easy to, actually, we'll give that against them. I wonder. But again, there's so many things that go into it. I think 20 years of dominance. And if you're a referee that supports anyone except Manchester United, you're probably a little bit sick of seeing Man United win things. That is ingrained in people. Those things are real. The amount of people who talk about when I was a kid on the playground and I used to get taken the piss out of by United fans because I wasn't a United fan. Like, everyone's got that story who isn't a United fan. Like, I bet refs have got that. Even if you're a Newcastle fan or a Leeds fan or a City fan or a Liverpool fan, you're going to have a story like that because that's what kids are like. And then 20 years later, you're a ref and you go, actually, I've got a chance to, not give that. Maybe that plays into your mind a little bit. I don't know. It does seem as though United have got a lot of 50-50s go the other way this season. And maybe it's just a bit of bad luck, but it's good to see Ange Postecoglou coming out. And also, actually, one second, the other thing is, there were no bad decisions against Tottenham. Romero could have already been sent off once. Udogi's was a clear second yellow, just completely late on Sterling. It's not like they were hard done by. He's lucky his players weren't sent off earlier. So maybe that's why he's so defensive of referees. Who knows? But it's good to see a little bit of balance, I think. And hopefully, I hope that we can go back and get rid of VAR. I'm not completely ruling that out yet, because I do think there's a possibility that we might see this sort of counter movement to the kind of modern revolution of football, and we may see a little bit of like, actually, let's just go back to one ref and maybe, more people on the pitch. Do you know how like cashless became a thing for a few years? 2012 to 2015 to 2018, everything was about going contactless, wasn't it? Oh, it's contactless now. That's really modern. All the hipster places do contactless. And then now the hipster places are starting to do cash again. Because actually contactless, you basically plugged into the government, and no one likes that. I reckon if football's gone, actually, let's go digital, let's get more screens, replays, and then eventually they're going to go, what we need is just a complete phalanx of referees all around the pitch, 300 human referees on every single area of the pitch, hover refs hanging over the pitch like something from Mission Impossible, and we'll do it the old school way, analog, human eyes, a million whistles, just fucking carnage, but no screens or cameras whatsoever. That's my dream for football. Right, that's going to be all from us. I think we need to stop there. We're going to be back this afternoon with Uncensored, me and Adam McCullough going through all of the latest nonsense, essentially. So make sure you come back for that. We're also here tomorrow, of course, for the watch along. Everything covered here on Stretford Paddock. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in a bit.